Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Tech Week Humber June JAM in partnership with IBM Z. Today, our guest is Melissa Sassi. Melissa Sassi is a global head of IBM Hyperprotect Accelerator, focused on empowering early-stage startups through technology and business acceleration. Melissa is a judge for Call for Code, an initiative aimed at preparing for and responding to disaster scenarios. Melissa spent several years at Microsoft Airband Initiative, where she was an international and an internet and energy access impact investor. Melissa is also the founder and CEO of Mentor Nation, a youth-led digital skills movement that has taught tens of thousands of young people to code across 12 countries. Melissa has given 100+ talks at UN events, education summits, tech conferences, and is a keynote speaker in topics such as digital inclusion, women in tech, community building, youth empowerment, imposter syndrome mentorship, and personal branding. I'm delighted to have Melissa here with us today. Thank you so much, Melissa, joining us from all over across the pond. Welcome. How are you?
All right. I guess that's my cue to turn on my camera and my
yes.
mic. All right, good. It looks like I did it okay. And
yeah.
I have because it is 6:34 in the morning for me. So in case I still sound a little scratchy and my eyes still look puffy, you know why.
Yeah.
You know, this is the risk you take when I join a 6:30 a.m. call.
No, brilliant, Melissa. Look, I'll let you kickstart straight away. We're going to look at sort of, kickstart your career in enterprise computing, and then we'll look at how to boost your entrepreneurial spirit, and then we'll have a bit of a session around Q&A at the end of it, and then we'll take it from there, if that's okay.
That sounds really good. I'd love to see in the chat window, what where everybody is videoing in from, or where you're joining from. I'm Melissa Sassi, and I'm joining you from Dallas, Texas, actually in a small town called Grapevine, Texas, which is a small town outside of Dallas. That's kind of a throwback to old America. We've got a clock tower. We have a main street. We have a lot of restaurants and bars, and it's pretty fun little vibrant community. So as Antonio mentioned, I head up the IBM Hyperprotect Accelerator, and I'm also the head of student and entrepreneur experience globally within the IBM Z or IBM Z division of IBM. And what does that mean? I have the wonderful opportunity of working together with early stage startups to help them build and scale. I focus on startups with less than $1 million in revenue, less than 5 years old, startups that are working in fintech, health tech, and insurtech. We give them $120,000 in cloud credits. The application process actually closes today.
Wow.
So if there is anyone out there listening who has a startup in fintech, health tech, insurtech, less than $1 million in revenue, I'm going to put in the chat window the application page, because the application process closes today at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And right now it's about 7:30 a.m. Eastern time. So, if that's something you're interested in, you've still got time to apply. And the application process is pretty straightforward. Any of you who have a startup, you should be able to answer the questions. And I'm guessing you have a pitch deck that you can submit. I've just put that into the chat window. I'm also going to give you some other things that you can take part in, and depending upon your interests, depending upon whether you're interested in entrepreneurship, whether you're a student, because I know Antonio has a lot of relationships, as well as those around him with both the student community as well as the startup community. Yes. So we'll talk to you about some of the student opportunities as well. But if you don't fall into the realm of a student or an entrepreneur, that's okay. The things I'm going to go through today are really things that help you prepare for the future of work. Whether you're, let's say 14 or, 54, it doesn't matter. I also believe that we're all lifelong learners, and when I talk about, the student element of the work that I do, we often have a lot of, people joining our programs that are, returning back to, kind of re-looking at their careers, or returning back to the workforce. I have colleagues of mine that work with returning mothers. So for example, you might have had, an education here, you went off to, do your mom things, and that may not have involved being in the workforce, or it may involve working part-time, and people who are looking to say, okay, what's next? What do I want to do, after this? So, don't get worried, if you think, wait a second, I'm not a startup, I'm not a student, do I belong? Yes, you do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share my screen, and it will take me just a minute to maneuver around with my my screen. So give me just a second, but I promise you're going to see my presentation come up shortly, assuming my computer cooperates. So hold tight. It'll do what we need it to do shortly.
Yeah.
I think it's still early for my computer as well. Antonio, are you able to see my screen? I'm going to put it in presentation mode, but is it coming through okay?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Perfect.
All right, so today we're going to talk about kickstarting your career in enterprise computing. And again, don't stress if you're looking at this and thinking, hold on, I'm already well into my career, and I came here to learn more about how do I advance my career into other areas. This is still relevant for you. So it may not be, kickstarting your career initially. It may be kickstarting your career into somewhere where I consider it's where it's at. So let's jump in. Forget that I've got my colleague Shelly up here. She and I often present this together, and I always forget that I need to take Shelly off when I'm presenting by myself, but we're going to pretend Shelly's here because Shelly's super awesome and we like Shelly. So your awesome speaker today is, well, me. I'm the chief penguin of IBM Z as well. I gave myself this fun little job title because who wants a boring job title anyway? And I actually created my job 2 times over at IBM. I actually created my job twice at Microsoft. So stick with me and you'll learn how to also create your own job title. If you're on Twitter, you can find me at Mentor Africa with a K, enter at your own risk. I definitely focus on business stuff, but I allow my personal side to shine. And I'm a big proponent of free speech. So again, enter at your own risk. All right, cool. So assuming my computer cooperates soon, we're going to jump in. There we go. So a bit about me. I've already shared some of the work things that I've got going on, but I have this little motto, and it's be an and, not an or. And what I mean by that is, think about all of the many things that you want to do in your career, in your life, when it comes to injecting your purpose and your passion into your career. And, I'm a perfect example of showcasing why and how you can those things can intersect. So I'm an intrapreneur, meaning I innovate inside of someone else's company. So I have my own startup inside of IBM. That's the IBM Hyperprotect Accelerator. My division was terrible at talking with and to startups, understanding startups. I came on board to help figure that out. And I can say now we have a place within the startup community. So it's still what I would consider a startup because my program launched in 2019. I'm the creator of it, and we're still kind of evolving it. We have 45 startups in our portfolio now. We're growing that to 100 by the end of this year. Perhaps I can't call it a startup anymore, toward the end of this year, but I kind of like knowing that I've got a scrappy startup inside of a big tech company. I'm also an entrepreneur. So I have my own co-working space, robotics lab, IoT lab in Tunis, Tunisia. You've heard about, one of the exciting accolades that I have of teaching tens of thousands of young people to code in 12 countries. I'm also the chair of the Digital Skills and Readiness Working Group within IEEE, or the largest engineering organization on the planet. We created the first world standard for what it means to be digitally literate that launched at the end of October of last year. Really exciting movement, for me, really exciting achievement and accomplishment for me. It was part of my PhD research. And by the way, as of Sunday, I can now introduce myself as Dr. Melissa Sassi because I just got my PhD and I'm very, very excited about that. Obviously, I'm working within the startup community. So, I have, deep-seated, relationships all over the world when it comes to, the startup ecosystem. I work very closely with youth. So I'm very much a proponent of youth-centered design, youth at the center. I'm also a creator, a maker, and doer who doesn't believe in hierarchies or being kind of handcuffed into a role, a hierarchy. I believe in making the impossible possible. That's, I guess, the entrepreneur inside of me, or the intrapreneur inside of me. We're gonna look at some of those skills today. And I also have what I call a Thrive Hive. And what I mean by that is I have this group of friends, this group of colleagues, this group of sponsors, mentors, people who are kind of, looking out for me and my best interests, while in turn I'm being a friend and a cheerleader, a sponsor, a mentor, looking after them and their best interests. I kind of surround myself around people who help me to, make the impossible possible, help me to believe more in myself when, things are not going so well. And I tend to navigate, again, away from, some of my negative Nancy friends who've got, kind of negative things to say when things are going wrong, or negative things to say when things are, going right. Obviously there's a place for constructive criticism. I love feedback, but there's also a place for that infectious positivity. Again, you can find me on Twitter at Mentor Africa with a K for anybody who would like to engage with me that way. We're going to skip, Shelly's bio, since Shelly's not with us today. So I can't see the chat window now, and maybe Antonio can help me with this. But
yeah, sure.
I have a question, and that's: have you ever heard of IBM Z, or do you think that you've ever used IBM Z before in your life? I'd like you to use the chat window. Don't be shy. It's okay. Yeah. I ask you this because a lot of people have never heard of IBM Z before. So I'd like to know, for those of you in the audience, and Antonio, let me know if anybody's chimed in.
Yeah, I will do.
So that's, food for thought. If you're too shy to use the chat window, no worries. I know sometimes I get a bit shy to, speak out, especially when I don't know something. I'm expecting for many of you not to know. So, don't worry if you come at me and say, I don't know what this IBM Z thing or IBM Z thing is all about. So have you, or, your parents or family members ever used an ATM card? Well, yeah. We've pulled money out of the cash point. We've, used a credit card or a debit card, especially in a location where, most of you or all of you are calling in from, or dialing in from. So the other question is, have you ever shopped in a retail store? Okay, yeah, we've all, been to a shop, right? We've used our credit card. We've used our debit card. We've pulled money out of the cash point. The other question is, have you ever stayed in a hotel? Probably so. Right? So these are some common things that, most of us, if not all of us, have done in our lives. Or what about flown in an airplane, made an airplane reservation? I'm actually going to be making an airplane reservation today. I'm excited to bring my daughter back to the United States from Tunis. She has been living there for the last 15 years. Wow. So my daughter will be coming back to the United States for the first time in 15 years, which that's a story in itself. And Antonio, if I haven't told you the story already, I will tell you it soon, because it's a whirlwind adventure of making the impossible possible. So many of us, yeah. All right, cool. So now what I'm going to tell you is that IBM Z powers the world's leading businesses. So you can see the stat here in terms of the number of retailers running Z. You can see the number of worldwide banks, the number of the world's largest airlines, and also the number of the world's largest insurers. So now you're looking at this and thinking, wait a second, how is it that I've never heard of IBM Z or IBM Z? So many people I know are like, what is this IBM Z thing? Even, technologists. If you have heard of IBM Z, awesome. I'm excited about that. If any of you have also heard of IBM Z, I'd love to hear in the chat window. So now we know that you've used IBM Z. We know that now it's everywhere around you. And we know that it powers, your cash point. So if you go to the cash point, you put your card into the cash point, as long as you've got money in there, it pretty much works all the time. We know that if you use your credit card at the store, it's always on. We also know when you're going to book an airline reservation, for the most part, it's almost always on, unless there's some kind of, glitch or other activity that sits outside of, IBM Z. And same thing with hotel reservations. You expect to be able to, go online or make a phone call, make that reservation. And same thing when you go shopping in a store. Like, it just works, right? We're not often many of us are not often carrying around significant amounts of cash to do the things that we need to do because we know and we have trust in our ATM card. All of that happens really through IBM Z. And let's talk about what happens in an internet second. So in a second, 6,000 tweets, 18,000 swipes. So Antonio, I am not telling whether that's, you make probably 18,000 swipes on Tinder. We're going to just put that aside, Antonio.
Is that left or right?
Yeah, we're not gonna air your dirty laundry here on today's call. I promise to be nice to you.
Thank you.
20,000 snaps, 63,000 Google searches, but check out the power of IBM Z. 1.2 million transactions flow through IBM Z in a second. Like when you look at how that compares to the number of tweets, swipes, snaps, and searches, most of the people I talk to get really excited about just the power of IBM Z, but it's not just about the power of it and how many transactions are flowing through IBM Z. There are three things that I think make, enterprise computing or IBM Z special, and that's super open source friendly. Second thing would be it's always on. So remember when I talked about your debit card working, your credit card working, that's 99 and 7 nines. So it's pretty much up all the time. And this makes it on more than any other server on the planet. Same thing with security. So if you think about the important aspect of data protection, privacy, and security, IBM Z stands in a class of its own when it comes to being the most secure server on the planet. So if you take anything away from today's call, it would be a few buzzwords. It would be the number of transactions in a second, how open it is, how on it is, and how secure it is. And again, when I say open, I mean open source, not necessarily open when it comes to data protection, privacy, and security. So you've got a lot of cool stuff you can work on, lots of opportunities, whether it's hybrid cloud, data and analytics, confidential computing, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain, all kinds of cool opportunities are possible when it comes to our world. Frankly speaking, we did a Forrester study and, identified that, well, our jobs are pretty cool. You make more money in enterprise computing, you have a better life balance. You also have an ability to make the world a better place. So it's not just about doing well, meaning making a good salary. You can also do good, meaning solve the UN Sustainable Development Goals, focus on, some of these important elements that, make you feel good, make you wake up in the morning, beyond just doing a job, getting a salary, doing your, 9 to 5 kind of thing, or whatever your working hours are. You also have an opportunity to work on innovative and cutting edge technology. And there's a lot of job security. A lot of the employees who have focused on enterprise computing skills, specifically like programmers and systems admin, individuals, those skills are in demand. A lot of those employees are actually retiring, and there's a bit of a skills gap when it comes to the skills that you're learning in school or the skills that you have had access to through formal education and what is required in these jobs. I'm going to give you a couple of learning journeys today for you to explore, should you decide that you're interested in coming into a couple of these roles. So I included some student quotes here, but if you're not a student, don't worry. There's still places for you that are both entry level and beyond. So let's hear from Lella. Lella's based out of the UK. She just won the Princess Diana Award, and I nominated her. So she just won, I think they just announced it yesterday or the day before. Lella is my mentor. She is 16 years old. I do a bi-weekly live stream with Lella. She's just amazing. So let's hear what Lella has to say. Want to kickstart your career in tech? Have you ever thought about enterprise computing? Join students like me to explore how you can learn, network, and showcase your skills. Again, that's Lella. You can find her on Twitter here. She is going to be your boss one day. She may even be your prime minister one day.
Wow.
She is an absolute superstar. This is Mika from South Africa. Nika says, learning from others around the world has been extremely beneficial to me in my journey into enterprise computing. Join us. The IBM Z Global Student Hub is filled with passionate students like you. You can find the link down here to join our student hub. I'm going to put a link in the chat window. Please join. Why should you join? A few different reasons. One, for every person who joins today, I'm going to give I'm going to feed one child for the day through the UN, through the World Food Program, through their Share the Meal initiative. So by joining this, and basically what you do, I'll walk you through it today. You go to that website. Again, I'll put the link in the chat window in just a second, and you register. You first get an IBM ID, and then you register for the platform. And there's just so many different opportunities there. We give away prizes. We give away swag. We have a student ambassador program, and you also have learning journeys, but you can only access everything by joining the hub. So let's hear from Hartanto. Hartanto says, I continue to sharpen my skills as I prepare for my career in enterprise computing through IBM Z's Global Student Hub. Join us on your learning journey and land your first job in tech. So, if you're thinking about transitioning to a career in enterprise computing, this is also a place for you. So don't get scared over, wow, it's a student. Am I a student? Don't stress out too much about that. As I mentioned, you can score swag. You can get showcased because we invite our members to take part in events, to guest blog, to start in videos. Again, you can build your skills. And this is not just about hardcore technical skills. We focus on all of those skills that are necessary for the future of work. That's entrepreneurial spirit, professional development skills, as well as hardcore technical skills. You can also network with peers, experts, and IBMers around the world. So join us on the Student Hub. And again, I will feed one child for the day through the World Food Program Share the Meal initiative. So let me add in that chat in the chat.
Thank you. We'll also share that to everybody as well, Melissa, after the chat.
Okay, so I'm going to just share my screen again real quick, but yeah, if you join up for that with that Student Hub, I've got all kinds of swag and cool stuff, and I'm just waiting for people to come in and take part in it. One of the things that I'd also like to do today is, I guess, let me ask you this. For those of you who are attending today, who would be interested in getting a participation certificate from IBM? You got to tell me if you want one.
Yeah. I'm definitely,
because I'm not going to create one unless you tell me that you want one. So This is your chance to tell me and engage in the chat window.
Yeah, we'll ask everybody to say if they can engage in that.
And if you don't want one, you will stay silent. But if you do want one, let us know.
Put your hands up.
Yeah. And so what we're expecting for you to do, if you would like a participation certificate today, join the Student Hub. In the discussion tab, tell me which, once you join the Student Hub, tell me which event you attended, and I will give you a participation certificate that you can share in social media and have, for your, CV to talk about some of the informal training that you've, taken part in your career. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my other presentation. So give me a second while I pull it up.
Okay.
Just being a bit slow.
It's okay.
And forgive me for 1 second. I'm just going to grab a Kleenex, if you don't mind. I moved my Kleenex box from my desk.
Absolutely.
That way I'm not talking with a stuffy nose. I've got allergies today. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, I'm back. Texas weather is brutal, and the amount of pollen in the air. And usually I have a Kleenex box sitting next to me, but I think my boyfriend came in and stole my Kleenexes. So I was looking over here. I'm like, oh.
Trust me, it's just as bad here.
When he wakes up, he's going to hear it. He's going to be in trouble. Because I know it's all his fault. And even if it's not his fault, it's his fault.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. There we go. I found my presentation. So let me just share my screen, and then I'll move the presentation over to the correct monitor. Okay, I'm just going to put that into presentation mode in a second, but can you see, is it green and black and say boost your entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, it should be in full screen mode in just a second. All right, perfect. So for those of you who are thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or those of you who are already an entrepreneur and just thinking about what are some of those traits and skill sets, you've come to the right place. I've already introduced myself, but if anyone has joined late, you can find me on Twitter at Mentor Africa with a K. I'll skip my bio because you already heard all of that. As I mentioned, we're going to feed a child for the day by joining the Student Hub. There's so many great opportunities here. If we have time, I'm going to, I'm going to give you a survey for you to complete to see who's joined the Student Hub from our conversation. All right, so what's an entrepreneur? We're going to find out. It's really someone who creates a business or businesses. It's their own business, and it really requires you to take personal risk, to create your own company. It's and another thing you heard me say earlier when I introduced myself was I'm an intrapreneur. And this is basically the same thing as an entrepreneur, but instead of creating your own company, you're innovating and creating and making and doing inside of someone else's company. You're bringing, things in that are very outside in, and you're thinking outside of the box. You're essentially an entrepreneur, but you're not the owner of the company, if you will. So what are some common traits, of an entrepreneur? You're uncomfortable with uncertainty. You know that the future's unknown, and you're okay with that. You have a vision for rethinking and reimagining the future. So one of the things I mentioned was making the impossible possible. For me, that's a common trait of an entrepreneur as well. You recognize a few different things, or two different things, when it comes to both your personal and professional life, and that you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You can't predict it. You can try to plan for the best. You can use some predictive modeling in your brain to kind of think about what's going to happen, but you're okay with not knowing what's going to happen next, or being able to predict it. How, as an entrepreneur, knowing how to handle uncertainty is super important. That how you handle it really matters. And, to that end, you kind of focus on the things that you can control. You do your best to control and shape the future, but you're not really trying to predict it. You take actions as well, so you get stuff done. You know what your goals are, and you make progress against your goals. You also recognize that sometimes, failures happen. Sometimes things happen that are outside of your control, and you course correct, or you pivot when some of those things happen. You've also mastered how to create a business model canvas. So what's a business model canvas? It's something like this. It looks at the key elements of your business, whether that's your partners, the activities that you're going to engage in, your resources, and that could be people, and financial. Your value proposition. So what is it that you bring, to your customer base? What are those customer relationships, or what do you envision those customer relationships to look like if you haven't, gained customers yet? What channels are you going to sell in, or what are the different segments that you're going to sell in when it comes to, customer demographics or geography? What does it cost you to start? What is it going to cost you to, run over time? And what does your revenue look like? Or what kind of money are you bringing in? You also incorporate design thinking. What's design thinking? It's really about, talking to and with your audience and really capturing the insights that they have to share with you. It's truly understanding their wants, needs, aspirations, pain points, and frustrations. And keep in mind that you can apply design thinking not just to, customers. It can be applied to your community. It can be applied to your team. Frankly, I kind of apply it in my relationships with my friends and loved ones, because it's all about empathizing with your audience.
Yeah.
It's about being people-centered, customer-centric, if you will. So it's someone who knows their MVP. We'll talk about what an MVP is in a second, but it's, again, knowing what your MVP is, but pivoting or changing, if, a failure happens or if a change happens that was unexpected. So what's an MVP? It's your minimum viable product, or it's the simplest version of your product. It's what allows you to go ahead and, launch your new solution to gain customers. It's not perfect. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles that, your app or your business or your website or your e-commerce solution, what you want it to have, but it allows you to start to get revenue, to start to expand your customer footprint, or to start to get, market share. As I mentioned, when you're thinking about someone pivoting, that means you're comfortable with failure. You know what your passions and strengths are. You know what wakes you up in the morning, but you're also a learn-it-all or a lifelong learner. That's why I said today, don't get too worried about, me talking about my student hub or student experience. I believe that we're all students, whether we're in formal education or informal education, or just skating along trying to learn more. It's someone that thrives in ambiguity. You look for change, but you also are a problem solver, a critical thinker. You're always innovating, breaking the mold, and looking for new ways of doing things. You're big and bold and full of ideas. You're an innovator. You're a creator. You're a maker and a doer. Yet you know how to prioritize. One of the challenges I often see with startups and founders, especially first-time founders, is looking after, and running after the first shiny thing or the first squirrel that comes into the room, and that kind of causes that startup to be everywhere and nowhere and not make progress. So make sure you stand behind your goals and beliefs. A true entrepreneur is looking at, their goals, looking at their beliefs, they're standing behind them. But you're also knowing that there's always a new way to do things, and there's always a way that things can be better. All right. You've also got courage. You take calculated risks. You use reputable data. You use facts and objectivity. You don't get caught up in fake news or conspiracy theory or media misinformation and disinformation. Now, don't get me wrong, there are entrepreneurs out there who get caught up in anything and everything and don't have these traits, and they're still successful. But these are some of the things that overarchingly make you a more successful entrepreneur compared to the lot. Now, you're going to have exceptions everywhere. You're going to find people who are not empathetic, who are, happen to be, very successful entrepreneurs. You're going to have people who fly, by the seat of their pants and work from their gut, and are not necessarily using, data, facts, and objectivity. But, these things will help you, be more successful on average compared to the alternative. Again, you're creative, you're passionate, and you're an innovator. I like to look at the, 5 Ps of an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, and that's persistence. So, you stick with things, even when, things are tough or you've got failure or challenges in front of you. You're patient. You pivot when you need to, if a failure comes up or if a setback occurs, but you're still patient. You have purpose, meaning you know what your mission, vision, goals, and objectives are, yet you're tied to getting things done. So you're also a good programmer, project manager, in the sense of making sure that either you or your team, are also focused on, again, getting things done, hitting your targets, hitting your goals, hitting them in the right time, right place. You're people-centric, you're empathetic, you're team-centric, customer-centric, partner-centric, collaborator-centric. you're really thinking about, others around you. Again, not all, CEOs or entrepreneurs think like this, but this helps to increase your chances of success. You focus on, profitability, because you know that, you're in business for a purpose. You might be solving a problem. You might be solving a world challenge. You might be making the world a better place. You recognize that you've got to bring in funding. You have to bring in revenue to have a strategic and self-sustaining company. So thank you for taking part today. I guess the question now is, who's ready to be an innovator, a creator, a maker and doer who transforms the world in which we live? All right, perfect. Any questions?
Fantastic. We've actually got quite a couple of questions, Melissa, but I'm actually going to kick off and ask you several questions. I'm actually going to go first into the career side of, enterprise computing. What is the most common sort of pathway for anybody that has never thought about it or has a skill into computers or a passion into computing? How do they start thinking about a career? What's the easiest pathway that you think is?
I think that it depends upon, kind of your technical competence and how hardcore technical you want to be in your career. So what I would say is, if you've got some, decent background, from a technical perspective, and, maybe, this programming language or that programming language, and you're thinking, I'd like to see what a Z developer, what does that mean? Or you've got some systems admin experience, but maybe doing something different, or maybe it's been a long time since you've practiced your skills. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a learning journey. Give me 1 second while I pull it up. It'll take me a second to find the exact link. This is on the Student Hub, by the way.
Okay.
There are 2 learning journeys where you can earn badges, and you can follow along for free in an informal fashion. That would be, one area that I would think about. So let me just, I don't want to do the, I don't want to do it by memory, because I know if I do the link by memory, I'm going to get it wrong.
Yeah. It's also worth mentioning, Melissa, while you're here, is that we actually have a lot of the educators that are actually broadcasting this in the classrooms. So,
cool.
So that's why
welcome our students.
You're probably going to see other questions coming, and this session's being recorded, and we're going to actually broadcast it as well. We're going to share it all across our social media channels. So, I think it's kind of important to realize that, there is a way into understanding that, into that career. But also, I think it's from a technology perspective, because you also have the other tech giants that are doing similar stuff as you guys. So it might be worth just saying, look, okay, why is IBM Z and the stuff that we're working on at the moment so important? And, how can that help somebody into that sort of employment sector within that?
Yeah, so, I mean, for me, I would check out those 2 learning journeys. I would join the Hub. I would attend our events. I do events every single week, and they're all geared toward, different types of audiences. They are, I often do kind of a day in the life of certain enterprise computing professionals in some of my events, so that you can really hear more about, like, what is that person's job actually like? Like, what are they actually doing every day? So that's a really great place, to kind of figure out, is this for me? I will also tell you that if you're thinking, okay, wait a second, I don't know how to code, I'm not a computer scientist, is this still a place for me? I'll tell you, I'm not an engineer. I couldn't code my way out of a cardboard box. Yet I manage a team of engineers.
Yes.
Yeah. Both in my job at IBM as well as my nonprofit that I run. And, there are many different job roles and functions within IBM Z, as well as the broader, IBM umbrella, as well as other tech companies. Because if you think about it, it takes a diverse group of people and skill sets and experiences to work in tech.
Yes.
There are certain, for example, you've got, HR, you've got, product marketing,
yes.
You've got legal, you've got sales,
yes.
You've got, developer evangelism, you've got, then you've got your hardcore technical thing. So I think the first thing is, are you thinking, what kind of path are you thinking of going down? And again, here are a couple learning journeys. On the Student Hub, we will be launching a student contest in the, where you're going to have some prerequisite learnings that will start in August. And this is all geared toward, student learning or, lifelong learners. We give away prizes. You can win thousands of dollars, meet our executives, take part in events, that sort of thing. It's going to launch in August. And in August, you'll have an opportunity to go through some kind of pre-learning activities. And then the competition, I think it starts in October, if I'm not mistaken. And so you'll have a couple of months to get through these learning journeys. So then you can kind of kickstart participating in this contest. And, in previous years, the contest winners are put on shortlists for, job opportunities. And employers actively look out for these people who have taken part in the student contest to offer them internships. IBM has done the same thing and offered internships to people who are, on this list. In case you're like, ooh, I don't know about this, I'd like to put my foot in the water. We have an IBM Z ambassador program, which is all about learning skills in enterprise computing for people who are still exploring what the heck do you want to do, with your life and where do you want to go. The application page for that will go live in the coming weeks. But since we've got a number of students who are participating in from the classroom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a survey, and what I'm creating this survey for is to enable our teachers in the classroom to give some homework to the young people in the classroom, to encourage them to join the Student Hub. One of the things that I see that our educators sometimes do is, I'll give an example, Herb Daly. He is a professor at Wolverhampton University, and I hope I said it right. Herb, if you're listening, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, you got it.
I always want to call it like Wolverine, and then I get in trouble because I'm like, it's not Wolverine, Melissa.
Yeah,
I just want it to be Wolverine. It just sounds like a cool, like a cool
university. Yeah.
But Herb tells me that's not what it's called. At any rate, he often will require his students to listen to one of my talks and provides homework for them. He'll give them, ask them to write a paper on it or ask them a number of key questions. He'll do that for enterprise computing, and he does that for many of the other talks that I give, including, joining some of our hackathons and joining some of our coding camps. We have a large event that's happening on September 14th and 15th. It's a 24-hour student event that is going to have coding. It's going to have talks. It's going to have an introduction to our student contest. You're going to meet our Z ambassadors, 24 hours of content. We're also going to be launching a new mobile application called Hour of Z. It's collaboration with code.org and their Hour of Code initiative, where you're going to spend an hour exploring the pathways of how does a piece of data go from I'm ordering this toy online, or I'm ordering this shirt or these shoes or whatever I'm ordering online. And what is that digital underground that it goes to or goes through from, what is cloud computing? What is enterprise computing? What is an API? What are some of the common programming languages that you find within IBM Z? And, what is syntax? What's an algorithm? In case you don't know what some of these things are, don't worry. This is something that we'll be teaching you through Hour of Z, and that launches on the 14th or 15th of September. Perfect. It's something I'm feverishly building right now.
Yeah, no.
So what I'm going to do, tell me, what do you think about that? I think we should spin up some coding camps.
I love it. I think send it our way. We'll definitely get involved, and we get as many participants involved. It sounds so exciting, Melissa, and I think
I'm so excited about it.
It's very exciting. One of the key things, especially in our region where we are in the Humber, is we really want to encourage more digital skills, and we have the willingness, and we've got a lot of partnerships with universities and colleges and schools around here that are really keen to get involved. So any opportunity like this as a region, I think we'll be absolutely delighted to participate.
Okay, so I am just making this survey. I'm just going to check on the survey, make sure I've got everything in here all right. And basically what it's going to provide you with is a certificate for joining the Student Hub and for taking part today. So for those of you who are joining from the classroom and may not have access to a device right now, perhaps our teachers out there could provide some homework, maybe even pick out an article, a blog, or a video on the Student Hub, have your students, watch that or read that and, provide a synopsis of what did they learn, how has this changed their life, and what actions do they have for the future, for their future selves. So let me just I'm going to create a shortened link from it real quick because we've got time. I've
got a few questions.
We have another. What's that?
I've got a couple of questions from the chat, so do you want me to
please.
those?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'll read the first question, which is actually asked by Samantha Jones. And she says, what is the biggest security risk for IBM?
The biggest security risk?
Yes.
I think that, here's what I think. I think when it comes to, data protection, privacy, and security, I'm very thankful that the IBM Z, solutions, or like the Linux One machine, is the most secure server on the planet. So for me, I'm really excited, to see that. And, I think if you want to, Google who's hacked a mainframe, you're not going to find, you're not going to find that many results. Yeah. But if you Google who's hacked the cloud, one of the biggest challenges that typical cloud providers experience is that your administrators, so your employees, often have access to customer data. So let's say, for example, you're a big bank and you decide to move off of a Linux One machine or a mainframe, okay? Because a Linux One machine or an IBM Z machine, these are mainframes. So they're part of enterprise computing, what we talked about a second ago. Let's say you're a big bank and you decide, you know what? Everybody, the cloud is all the rage. We're going to move into the public cloud because everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
You recognize that your uptime is going to change. You recognize that your scalability is going to change from a cost perspective. Yeah. You also recognize that you're going to have to, kind of re-engineer or re-architect some of your solutions. And you also recognize that you're going to have a different, let's say, level of security. So let's say you decide to make that journey. There is a bank, and I'm not going to name any names because I might get in trouble. There is a bank that experienced significant challenges with having their data breached. We've all heard of it. We all know the example. I'm going to avoid, calling out specific names. Yes. Why did that happen? Because they went into a less secure environment. And what did they do? They came back to, this machine. So I would say, what is the biggest, risk that we have? I think it was, I think one of the things are kind of looking at, hey, do you want to move off these machines? Does it make sense for us to, work in the public cloud versus having an on-prem solution that's going to be, more secure, where, your cloud admin can have access to your data. And so what we did is, in response to that, we realized that, wait a second, IBM has a cloud solution. And we also realized that, customers are increasingly wanting to think about how can they move to the cloud and not necessarily have, on-prem or on-premise machines and equipment. And so what we decided to do is to take these machines and offer them as a service. And what I mean by that is taking these machines and saying, all right, you want to work in the cloud. All right, we're going to take these machines, instead of having them on-prem, on premises, we're going to put them into the cloud and make it a standard cloud offering. So you can still take advantage of the data protection, privacy, security, all of that kind of stuff, all of the benefits of IBM Z, but you're going to have shared space, if you will, with other customers. Now, the interesting thing about this is what sets this apart is, even though it's running in the cloud, IBM doesn't have access to your data. Your data is secure, saved in secure enclaves or secure, compartments, if you will. And that's how we responded to it, because we realized it wasn't just about saying, all right, this is the only solution. We realized that folks were looking at other solutions, even, some of our tried and true customers. So we responded to that by essentially creating a new product set. It's called IBM Cloud Hyperprotect Services. So if you think about the startup accelerator that I run, IBM Cloud Hyperprotect or IBM Hyperprotect Accelerator, this leverages that particular product.
That's fantastic.
So I would say that would be a big thing, but I think, frankly speaking, the world is a crazy place, and we're seeing significantly more, data breaches happen. Those are happening every day, and many of those breaches are happening from insider activities, meaning someone has, done some kind of phishing scam, or someone has done some kind of, ransomware activity because they have an insider, or because someone accidentally clicked on something or shared something they shouldn't have, or, is involved in some kind of nefarious activities. We hear about these every day. We hear about them impacting our supply chain, our, the oil and gas industry. We hear it impacting big tech companies. We hear it impacting, health ministries. It's happening everywhere. And this is why it's incredibly important for, folks, big tech companies like IBM to make sure that employees have the right data protection, privacy, and security training, but you're not just relying on training, you're relying on technology to prohibit bad things from happening. Because we see that training is not enough. You need to have a zero trust environment where even if I wanted to do something, I couldn't. So for example, I don't have access to customer, records. I don't have access to this stuff. Even if I wanted to do something bad, I can't, because my role does not require me to gain access to these things. So I think it's really important for, companies like IBM, as well as those that are handling sensitive data, to think beyond regulatory requirements and really implement the best and brightest when it comes to data protection, privacy, and security, or confidential computing.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer. Another question as well. Do we think entrepreneurs are born the way they are? Or is this something that they evolve or learn into? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I think there are certain things that make us who we are, that they're just innate, but I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. And it's so silly. I was a CEO of a company, my own company, but I kind of thought it was like my fun little social good thing, even though I was the CEO and founder and still am. I never saw myself as an entrepreneur. And I realized, like, a year into this thing, as I was building and as I was getting access to funding, and as I was like building this community and getting awards from, lots of different, companies. I've gotten, funding from the U.S. Department of State, from Google, HP, SAP, UNESCO, been nominated for UN awards. I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur. I had no idea. And I know that sounds pretty dumb, and it sounds dumb. Like, okay, you're the CEO, of course you're an entrepreneur. But I just, had always been an employee inside of somebody else's company, and was kind of afraid to have the risk of being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, and was afraid I didn't know enough. So I think sometimes over time in our lives, we gain confidence in our abilities, and we also gain skills, and we also find our passions. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who all of a sudden realize they're an entrepreneur and do their thing at the age of 40 or 45, which is, my age. I think it's very common for you to evolve into something like that. So I think it's something that you can evolve into. Not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody's going to be successful. But I think it's a combination of nature and nurture, if you will.
Cool. So I've got another question as well for you here. Entrepreneurs likely to follow a business model canvas. And I think, as an entrepreneur myself, it's a bit of a struggle, isn't it? It's always a battle to try and kind of follow it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. I think it just gives you something to ground yourself and helps you to go back to the basics. It's a bit of like a business school exercise of like, okay, what are your key strengths? What are your key weaknesses? What are your blah, what is your SWOT analysis? But I just find that it helps just keep you leveled on, what are you trying to achieve and where are you? And it kind of just grounds your team, because I think as a leader, we can't expect for everyone to be in our head. And sometimes your vision is different than your team's vision. And so having something on paper, or, in a template online, or, in your files, I think helps to align you as a team. So everybody's, set on, okay, here are the priorities. Here's where we're focused. This stuff is noise. And unless you have that document, it's kind of like your goals and objectives for your job, or your class. If your teacher doesn't tell you what success looks like and gives you a roadmap of, here's the week by week of homework assignments, and here are the things you're going to need to do. And by the way, here's the scoring rubric. Like, how are you going to know what to do? You don't know unless somebody tells you. And sometimes, it takes someone telling you. And sometimes it takes, you figuring things out together with someone else. So
I agree with you 100%. Thank you for that. And I think I'm getting quite a lot of positive comments, extremely helpful. They're taking quite a lot of information from the chat. And like I said, we have a lot of the educators that are actually broadcasting this to a lot of students, and we are recording this session. We will share it to everybody else. We'll send it to all our communities and all our audience.
I almost have the survey ready. I've been multitasking.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we can also send that out. And I genuinely think, the opportunities are there, especially from the learning perspective of getting into enterprise computing. And if you have the willingness and the desire to get into it, we are working obviously with yourselves, Melissa, and we can pinpoint people in terms of join the student hub. That's kind of the number one step. Get involved, ask your teachers to get involved, and if there's anything that we can support in terms of showing. I've joined the student hub, by the way, so because I know I'm helping feed another mouth as well.
Yeah, even if you're just going to come and check it out, like join, because help me give my money away. I've got budget to do this, so help me give IBM's money away to do this. I just added the link to the survey in the chat window. So feel free to give us feedback, and I'm happy to give out a certificate of participation for anyone who completes that survey. So for all of the educators out there that are broadcasting this in the classroom, feel free to share that with your students. And I think, Antonio, you're going to send some of these links out in a mailer to folks who registered and make it available, right?
Yeah, we are going to make it available all through across the social media platforms. Melissa, I couldn't thank you enough. You've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the early start. Come on, 6 o'clock in the morning, right?
Hey, it's 7:30 now. It's like the early bird gets the worm, right?
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I don't think we have any more questions. I really appreciate your time. I know you're quite a very busy lady, and thank you so much. And we'll be sharing everything, like I said, on social media channels. Melissa, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, I'm always here to do more events, so keep it coming. For any of the educators out there who would like to do any specific talks, especially around Hour of Z, feel free to join the Student Hub. Let me know. It's going to launch in September, and we will be doing a ton of takeovers all over the world to share IBM Z skills with anyone and everyone, including your teenagers. So if you're a parent and you have kids at home, we've got some really cool things that will be, part of IBM's the Hour of Z that will be launching in September, mid-September. So be on the lookout. Join the Student Hub. Get your certificate. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, everybody else. Thank you. Cheers.